Good morning. This is Kent Blaylock with SDG Bible Study. That's the Soli Deo Gloria Bible Study coming to you on this Tuesday morning, July the 21st, 2026. Hope everyone is doing well and are ready for the reading of God's Word this morning as we continue in the reading plan As It Happened, a one-year chronological walk through the Bible, and also reading from Daily Doctrine, a one-year guide to systematic theology. This morning we'll be in the book of Isaiah, reading chapters 28, 29, and 30. So join me as we read God's word together. Isaiah chapter 28. Woe to the proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim, and to the fading flower of its glorious beauty, which is at the head of the fertile valley of those who are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord has a strong and courageous agent, as a storm of hail, a tempest of destruction. Like a storm of mighty overflowing waters, he has set it down to the earth with his hand. The proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim is trodden underfoot, and the fading flower of its glorious beauty, which is at the head of the fertile valley, will be like the first ripe fig prior to summer, which one sees, and as soon as it is in his hand, he swallows it. In that day, Yahweh of hosts will become a beautiful crown and a glorious diadem to the remnant of his people, a spirit of just judgment for him who sits in judgment, a might to those who turn back the onslaught at the gate. And these also reel with wine and stagger from strong drink. The priest and the prophet reel with strong drink. They are swallowed up by wine. They stagger from strong drink. They reel while having visions. They totter when rendering a verdict. For all the tables are full of filthy vomit, without a single clean place. Whom would he instruct in knowledge, and whom would he provide understanding about the report? Those just weaned from milk, those just taken from the breast? For he says, order on order, order on order, line on line, line on line, a little here, a little there. Indeed, he will speak to this people through stammering lips and a foreign tongue. He who said to them, here is rest, give rest to the weary, and here is repose, but they would not listen. So the word of Yahweh to them will be order on order, order on order, line on line, line on line, a little here, a little there, that they may go and stumble backward, be broken, snared, and taken captive. Therefore, hear the word of Yahweh, O scoffers, who rule this people who are in Jerusalem. Because you have said, we have cut a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have made a pact. The overflowing scourge will not reach us when it passes by, for we have made falsehood our refuge, and we have hidden ourselves with lying. Therefore, thus says Lord Yahweh, behold, I am laying in Zion a stone, a tested stone, a costly cornerstone for the foundation, firmly placed. He who believes in it will not be disturbed. I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the level. Then hell will sweep away the refuge of falsehood, and the waters will overflow the secret place. Your covenant with death will be canceled, and your pact with Sheol will not stand. When the overflowing scourge passes through, then you will become its trampling place. As often as it passes through, it will take you. For morning after morning it will pass through, any time during the day or night, and it will be sheer terror to understand the report. The bed is too short on which to stretch out, and the blanket is too narrow to wrap oneself in. For Yahweh will rise up as at Mount Perazim. He will be stirred up as in the valley of Gibeon, to work his work, his unusual work, and to labor in his labor, his exceptional labor. So now, do not carry on as scoffers, lest your fetters be made stronger. For I have heard from Lord Yahweh of hosts of complete destruction, one that is decreed on all the earth. Give ear and hear my voice. Pay attention and hear my words. Does the farmer plow continually to plant seed? Does he continually turn and harrow his ground? Does he not level its surface and sow dill and scatter cumin and plant wheat in rows, barley in its place and rye within its area? For his God disciplines and teaches him proper judgment. For dill is not threshed with the threshing sledge, nor is the wheel of a cart driven over cumin. But dill is beaten out with a staff, and cumin with a rod. Grain for bread is crushed, but he does not continue to thresh it forever, because the wheel of his cart and his horses eventually disturb it. He does not crush it longer. This also comes from Yahweh of hosts, who has made his counsel wonderful and his wisdom great. Isaiah chapter 29. Woe, O Ariel, Ariel, the city where David once camped. And year to year, observe your feast on schedule. I will bring distress to Ariel, and she will be a city of mourning and moaning, and she will be like an Ariel to me. And I will camp against you, encircling you, and I will fortify siege works against you, and I will raise up fortifications against you. Then you will be brought low. From the earth you will speak, and from the dust where you are prostrate, your words will come. Your voice will also be like that of a spirit from the ground, and your speech will whisper from the dust. But it will be that the multitude of your enemies will become like fine dust, and the multitude of the ruthless ones like the chaff which blows away. And it will happen instantly, suddenly. From Yahweh of hosts you will be punished with thunder and earthquake and loud voice, with whirlwind and tempest and the flame of a consuming fire. And it will be that the multitude of all the nations who wage war against Ariel, even all who wage war against her and her stronghold, and who distress her, will be like a dream, a vision of the night. And it will be as when a hungry man dreams, and behold, he is eating, but he awakens, and his soul is empty, or as when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he is drinking, but he awakens, and behold, he is faint, and his soul is not quenched. Thus the multitude of all the nations will be who wage war against Mount Zion. Astonish yourselves and be astonished. Blind yourselves and be blind. They become drunk, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For Yahweh has poured over you a spirit of deep sleep. He has shut your eyes, the prophets, and has covered your heads, the seers. The entire vision will be to you like the words of a sealed book, which when they give it to the one who is literate says, please read this. He will say, I cannot, for it is sealed. Then the book will be given to the one who does not know how to read a book, saying, please read this. And he will say, I do not know how to read a book. Then the Lord said, behold, this people draw near with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but they remove their hearts far from me, and their fear of me is in the command of men, learned by rote. Therefore, behold, I will once again deal marvelously with this people, wondrously marvelous, and the wisdom of their wise men will perish, and the discernment of their discerning men will be hidden. Woe to those who deeply hide their counsel from Yahweh, and whose deeds are done in a dark place. And they say, who sees us, or who knows us? You turn things around. Shall the potter be considered as equal with the clay, that what is made would say to its maker, how he did not make me, or what his forms say to him who formed it? He has no understanding. Is it not just a little while before Lebanon will be turned into a fruitful orchard, and the fruitful orchard will be counted as a forest? On that day, the deaf will hear words of a book, and out of darkness and thick darkness, the eyes of the blind will see. The afflicted also will increase their gladness in Yahweh, and the needy of mankind will rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. For the ruthless will come to an end, and the scoffer will be finished. Indeed, all who are watching out to do evil will be cut off. Who cause a person to sin by a word, and ensnare him who reproves at the gate, and defraud the one in the right with meaningless arguments. Therefore, thus says Yahweh, who redeemed Abraham concerning the house of Jacob. Jacob shall not now be ashamed, and now his face shall not turn pale. But when he sees his children, the work of my hands in his midst, they will sanctify my name. Indeed, they will sanctify the Holy One of Jacob, and will stand trembling before the God of Israel. Those who err in spirit will know discernment, and those who criticize will gain learning. Isaiah chapter 30. Woe to the rebellious children, declares Yahweh, who execute counsel but not mine, and make an alliance, but not of my spirit, in order to add sin to sin, who go down to Egypt, but did not ask me, to find strength in the strong defense of Pharaoh, and to take refuge in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore, the strong defense of Pharaoh will be your shame, and the refuge in the shadow of Egypt your dishonor. For their princes are at Zon, and their messengers reach Hanes. Everyone will be ashamed because of a people who cannot profit them, who are not for help or profit, but for shame and also for reproach. The oracle concerning the beast of the Negev. Through a land of distress and anguish, from where comes lioness and lion, viper and flying fiery serpent, they carry their wealth on the backs of young donkeys and their treasures on camels' humps, to a people who cannot profit them, even Egypt, whose help is vain and empty. Therefore I have called her Rahab, who has ceased. Now go, write it on a tablet before them, and inscribe it on a scroll, that it may be in the time to come as a witness forever. For this is a rebellious people, false sons, sons who are not willing to listen to the law of Yahweh, who say to the seers, you must not see, and to those who have visions, you must not behold visions for us of what is right. Speak to us pleasant words, behold visions of illusions. Get out of the way, turn aside from the path, cease speaking before us about the Holy One of Israel. Therefore, thus says the Holy One of Israel, since you have rejected this word and have put your trust in oppression and deviousness and have relied on them, therefore this iniquity will be to you like a breach about to fall, a bulge in a high wall whose breaking comes suddenly in an instant, whose breaking is like the breaking of a potter's jar, so ruthlessly shattered that a potsherd will not be found among its pieces, to take fire from a hearth, or to scoop water from a cistern. For the Lord Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, has said, in repentance and rest you will be saved, in quietness and trust is your might, but you were not willing. And you said, no, for we will flee on horses. Therefore you shall flee, and we will ride on swift horses. Therefore those who pursue you shall be swift. 1,000 will flee at the threat of one man. You will flee at the threat of 5, until you are left as a flag on a mountaintop and as a standard on a hill. Therefore Yahweh waits with longing to be gracious to you, and therefore he is on high to have compassion on you. For Yahweh is a God of justice. How blessed are all those who wait for him. O people in Zion, inhabitant in Jerusalem, you will weep no longer. He will surely be gracious to you at the sound of your cry. When he hears it, he will answer you. The Lord has given you bread of distress and water of oppression. He, your teacher, will no longer hide himself, but your eyes will see your teacher, and your ears will hear a word behind you. This is the way, walk in it, whenever you turn to the right or to the left. And you will defile your graven images overlaid with your silver, and your molten images plated with your gold. You will scatter them as an impure thing, and say to them, be gone. Then he will give you rain for the seed which you will sow in the ground, and bread from the produce of the ground, and it will be rich and fat. On that day your livestock will graze in a roomy pasture. Also the oxen and the donkeys which work the ground will eat salted fodder, which have been winnowed with shovel and fork. And it will be that on every lofty mountain and on every lifted up hill there will be streams running with water on the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall. And the light of the moon will be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun will be 7 times brighter, like the light of 7 days, on the day Yahweh binds up the fracture of his people and heals a bruise he has inflicted. Behold, the name of Yahweh comes from afar. Burning is his anger, and heavy is his smoke. His lips are filled with indignation, and his tongue is like a consuming fire. His breath is like an overflowing torrent, which reaches to the neck, to shake the nations back and forth in a sieve of worthlessness, to put in the jaws of the peoples the bridle which staggers one to ruin. You will have songs as in the night when you set yourself apart as holy for the festival, and gladness of heart as when one marches to the sound of the flute to go to the mountain of Yahweh, to the rock of Israel. And Yahweh will cause his splendid voice to be heard, and the descending of his arm to be seen in raging anger, and in the flame of a consuming fire, in cloudburst, downpour, and hailstones. For the voice of Yahweh, Assyria will be dismayed when he strikes with the rod, and every blow of the appointed staff, which Yahweh will cause to rest upon him, will be with the music of tambourines and lyres, and in battles, waving weapons, he will fight them. For Topheth has long been ready. Indeed, it has been prepared for the king. He has made it deep and large, a pyre of fire with plenty of wood. The breath of Yahweh, like a torrent of brimstone, sets it. And that's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text this morning. Now we'll move on to the reading from Daily Doctrine. Day 202, Establishment Principle and Voluntary Principle. As Reformed ecclesiology developed in the modern world, few theologians advocated final state authority over the church or final church authority over the state. Anything too close to the former was dismissed as Erastian, who argued for state supremacy in ecclesiastical affairs, and anything too close to the latter was considered dangerously Catholic. But this doesn't mean the relationship between church and state was easy to figure out. Far from it. Even in countries with deep Protestant roots, church leaders and theologians often disagreed on whether the church should be organized according to the establishment principle or the voluntary principle. According to the establishment principle, the church should be supported, defended, and promoted by the state. Even in a country like Scotland, which had long emphasized the distinction between church and state as two kings and two kingdoms, the assumption was that Scotland was a Christian nation and ought to be governed as a godly commonwealth. The church alone had authority to determine its worship, doctrine, and discipline, but the state was obligated to recognize and support the church by means of tax revenue and by upholding certain fundamental principles of true piety. For example, the Sabbath observant. The magistrate was afforded a power about religion, circa sacra, but not a power in religion, in sacris. By contrast, those holding to the voluntary principle insisted upon a sharper separation of church and state. Most practically, this meant that the church was to be supported by the voluntary contributions of church members rather than out of state coffers. Likewise, no one would be considered a member of the church simply by virtue of being a citizen of that country. Churches would be formed by the voluntary association of those wanting to belong to a given congregation. Among Paedo-Baptists, those included parents and their children. Given the fact that many of the greatest Protestant theologians in history have belonged to and believed in an establishment church, I am hesitant to insist that the idea cannot mesh with biblical principles. And yet, as a Presbyterian, I'm glad that American Presbyterians, in forming a national denomination in 1788, altered the Westminster Standards in several places so as to give the civil magistrate much less of a role in the affairs of the church. Westminster Confession of Faith 20.4, 23.3, 31.1, and the Westminster Lesser Catechism 109. Sowing the seeds of this establishment, which took almost 50 more years to play out in the individual states, this formal change cemented what had already taken place informally when chapters 20 and 23 of the Confession were curtailed with the Adopting Act of 1729. While the separation of church and state has often been misconstrued as the separation of church from the state, or in more recent years, the hostility of the state toward the church, I nevertheless see good reasons for the voluntary principle. Number one, in an establishment, the church normally depends to some degree upon state revenue. This makes true ecclesiastical independence impossible. What the state giveth, the state can also taketh away. Number two, the state that can establish my religion can later change its mind and establish someone else's religion. Given our belief in human depravity and corruptibility, I prefer not to give the state authority concerning religious matters. Number three, the early church was clearly not an establishment church. The voluntary nature of gathering, belonging, and financially giving to the church, without which the church cannot flourish, seems more the spirit of the New Testament and should be considered a vital part of Christian discipleship. And that's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text and from Daily Doctrine this morning. As we read in the biblical text in Isaiah, more prophetic writings from Isaiah and words from Isaiah from our great God. And I'm always encouraged in these prophetic books, these greater and lesser prophets, the times when God speaks to his grace and his mercy and how he's going to restore the people of God. The only thing that's hindering the people of God are the people of God because of their hearts chasing after things other than Yahweh. And may our hearts always be focused on Yahweh. Then we read in Daily Doctrine about the establishment principle and voluntary principle. Of course, here in the United States, we hold to the voluntary principle, the separation of church and state, which has been misinterpreted by most people in this day and time. It's not the separation of church from state or state from church, but we don't want the church meddling in our affairs, the state meddling in the church's affairs, but we want the freedom to worship as we want. That's why the original settlers of this nation came here, to escape religious persecution by the state. That's one of the reasons we don't want that occurring again. Hope you understand. Hope you have a blessed day today. Soli Deo Gloria.